Hana, the girl of my dreams, literally, she haunted my sleep for weeks, is about to get swept off her feet by Minato, the rich new kid with a face like a romance novel cover. Everyone's expecting me to go full-on drama queen. Tears, shouting, maybe a dramatic hair flip. But I've got a secret weapon, premonitions. Yeah, you heard that right. Turns out I've got a knack for seeing the future. And in this particular future, I was a pathetic, lovesick mess who ended up crippled and miserable. Not exactly the happily ever after I was hoping for. So, while everyone's waiting for me to make a scene, I'm chilling at Hana's best friend's place, trying not to have an existential crisis. I mean, who wouldn't freak out a little when they see themselves becoming a human doormat in a few years? Finally, I decide to make my grand entrance. Not with a bang, but with a whimper. I stroll into the crowd, ignoring the gasps and whispers, and head straight for Hana. "Kenji," she says, her voice all tight-lipped. "You can't force feelings. Let's just be friends, okay?" "Sure," I say, handing her a ridiculously expensive watch I'd bought for her. In my pre-premonition days, when I thought I had a shot. "Just returning this?" Her face darkens. "Keep your money. I don't need it." "Fine," I shrug and chuck the watch in the nearest trash can. "You can throw away all the other stuff I gave you too." And with that, I walk off, leaving everyone stunned. Hana watches me go, her expression a mix of confusion and annoyance. Her friends try to comfort her. "He's just trying to save face. He'll be back, begging for forgiveness." Hana scoffs. "If it wasn't for our families being close, I wouldn't even bother with him." She glances at Minato, who's looking at her with adoring eyes. "Let's celebrate. Forget about Kenji." As I walk away, the rain starts coming down in buckets. I stand by the river, remembering my dream. The fall, the pain, the years of misery. And Hana, never visiting, never caring. But this time, things are different. I'm not going to be that pathetic version of myself. I'm going to rewrite my story. So there I was, standing by the river, rain pounding down like 1,000 tiny drummers. Not just any river, mind you, but the very same one where I met my tragic end in that freaky dream. Talk about a mood killer. But hey, at least I wasn't rotting in a ditch somewhere, thanks to my handy-dandy premonitions. Still, the fact that everything else from the dream Hana ditching me for Mr. Moneybags, Sakura collecting my sorry carcass, had come true was not exactly filling me with optimism. I dialed Sakura's number, my finger hovering over the call button like it was a landmine. In my dream, she'd cried over my decaying corpse. Actual tears. On my face. It was oddly touching. Maybe necrophilia was a thing in the afterlife? I shuddered. Best not to dwell on that. "Kenji?" Sakura's voice, slightly muffled, answered the phone. "It's raining cats and dogs here. Mind playing the knight in shining armor and rescuing a damsel in distress?" Silence. I could practically hear the gears turning in her head. Was she going to pull a Hana and pretend she didn't care? Or was this a sign that maybe, just maybe, my dream self had been a delusional idiot and she actually did have feelings for me? "Kenji?" she repeated, a hint of impatience in her voice. Yeah, sure. When do you need a lift?" I stammered, trying to play it cool. Nowish would be good. And with that, she hung up. 15 minutes later, I was soaked to the bone. Why? Because some desperate mother and her kid were huddled under a tiny umbrella, looking like they were about to be swept away by the biblical flood. Chivalry, my friend, chivalry. Besides, what's a little pneumonia compared to the potential of rekindling a romance with the girl of your dreams, who also happens to be your ex-crush's best friend? Sakura's car pulled up and she stepped out, looking like a glamorous ice queen. I plastered on a smile, trying to ignore the fact that my teeth were chattering. "Sakura, you're a lifesaver. You might as well be dead, you idiot," she said, her voice as frigid as her expression. She yanked me into the car and tossed me a blanket. "Dry yourself off. Don't want you ruining the upholstery." As I mopped up the excess water, I watched her through the rearview mirror. Distant, aloof, not a hint of the secret affection she supposedly harbored for me in my dream. Maybe Dream Kenji had been hallucinating. Or maybe this was all part of her master plan to lure me into a false sense of security before she revealed her undying love. Yeah, that was probably it. "Going back to the dorm?" she asked, breaking the silence. "Yep," I said, trying to sound nonchalant. She snorted. "Hana's not there. Don't get your hopes up." I know, not looking for her." I paused. Actually, an idea was forming. A risky, potentially disastrous idea. But hey, what did I have to lose? "What?" Sakura raised an eyebrow. "Well," I said, "after today's fiasco, my roommates have decided I'm officially the biggest loser on the planet. Thinking of finding a new place. Any chance I could crash on your couch for a night? Just until I figure things out?" She didn't answer, but the car was definitely heading towards her dorm. Interesting. Sakura led me to her room, a surprisingly tidy space for a college student. I mean, the girl even had her textbooks organized by color. Clearly, I was out of my league. She pointed me towards the bathroom, her voice barely above a whisper. I caught a whiff of her shampoo and body wash as I walked past, the scent lingering in the air like a silent invitation. I showered quickly, trying to ignore the fact that I was basically wearing a soggy hoodie in the girl of my dreams apartment. When I emerged, hair still damp, Sakura was sprawled on the couch, eyes glued to the TV. Pokemon. Seriously? Thanks for letting me crash here," I mumbled, feeling awkward. She just nodded, not even looking at me. I walked past her usual spot on the couch and sat down next to her. The air crackled with a tension thicker than my post-confession humiliation. Sakura abruptly stood up. "Too stuffy in here. Balcony time." And with that, she vanished onto the terrace. I took the opportunity to snoop around. Tidy textbooks, a meticulously organized coffee table, a framed photo of her and Hana. Wait, was that a limited edition Pokemon figurine? I was about to investigate further when Sakura's phone rang. Hana's name flashed on the screen. I hesitated. Should I answer? What if Hana was calling to gloat? Or worse, what if she was calling to apologize and I ended up ruining everything by sounding like a jealous idiot? The phone kept ringing. I yelled out to Sakura, "Hana's calling." She reappeared, snatched the phone, and silenced it. "What's up?" Nothing, just, I accidentally got the couch wet. Might have to sleep on the floor tonight." Smooth, Kenji, real smooth. Sakura glanced at the wet spot, then back at me. "Just sleep in my bed tonight. What about you?" She pulled out a chair, not even bothering to turn around. "Binge watching my shows." Just as she was about to put on her headphones, my phone rang. "Hana, of course." "What do you want?" I answered, trying not to sound annoyed. Sakura frowned but said nothing, just watched me with an unreadable expression. "Someone told me they saw you go to our dorm." Hana's voice crackled through the phone. "I'm warning you, don't cling to me. The more you do this, the more I'll hate you." I was speechless. Before I could respond, Sakura stood up and straddled my lap, her arms snaking around my neck. I instinctively tried to push her away, but she leaned in close, her lips brushing my ear. "Tell her you're here for someone else," she whispered, her fingers tracing the back of my neck. My skin felt like it was on fire. I looked down at her, my heart pounding. Her eyes were filled with a desire that sent a shockwave through me. "Stop flattering yourself," I said, my voice husky. "I'm here for someone else." She snatched my phone and tossed it aside, burying her head in my chest. The next second, I felt a surge of heat coursing through me. My first thought was to get up and cool off. But Sakura clung to me tighter, whispering my name. "Kenji." I struggled to control myself, leaning down to kiss her. She responded eagerly, her lips parting under mine. "Don't tempt me," I said, my voice ragged. "I don't want to touch you in this place." "If you don't want to touch me, why did you kiss me?" she murmured, her forehead pressed against mine. "Also, do you even know how to kiss?" My lips are swollen now. I gently placed my hand on her waist, the other cupping her face. "I'll be more gentle this time," I promised, pulling her closer. The kiss deepened, long and tender, but towards the end, I lost control. She lightly hit me, her breath coming in short gasps. Kenji? I tried to suppress the fire raging within me, but it was too late. Sakura's face flushed, her eyes wide with surprise. The usually cold and distant goddess now looked shy and flustered. I'm going to take a shower, she mumbled, standing up quickly and avoiding my gaze. She adjusted my shirt, her fingers lingering for a moment. You, go to sleep. And with that, she rushed into the bathroom, leaving me breathless and bewildered. The sound of the shower lulled me into a light doze. I pictured Sakura, tall, elegant, the undisputed goddess of our campus, growing old alone, just like in my dream. A wave of sadness washed over me. It wasn't exactly love, not yet, but there was definitely something. I shifted on the bed, my hand brushing against something smooth and round. A pearl earring. The same one I'd given to the girls in their dorm as a gift when I was chasing Hana. I hadn't expected Sakura to keep it, let alone hide it under her pillow. In my dream, she'd kept it her whole life. I stared at the earring, a strange mix of emotions swirling within me. Then, I gently tucked it back under the pillow. The shower stopped, and Sakura emerged, looking softer, more approachable than usual. The steam from the shower had given her skin a luminous glow, and her hair fell around her shoulders like a silken waterfall. For a moment, she looked incredibly cute. Just as I was about to say something, voices drifted in from the hallway. Hana. Crap. Sakura reacted instantly. By the time Hana pushed open the door, my clothes were stashed in the wardrobe, my shoes kicked under the bed, and I was sandwiched between Sakura and the mattress, praying I wouldn't spontaneously combust from the sheer awkwardness of the situation. Why'd you turn off the light so early? Hana asked, oblivious to the human burrito hiding under the covers. Headache from the rain? Sakura replied, her voice calm. The bed was tiny. Sakura, with her long legs and model-esque height, took up most of the space. I was pressed against her, my breath ghosting over her waist. I could feel the tension in her body. Hana, thankfully, didn't turn on the lights. She flopped onto a chair and started making calls. No answer. Her frustration grew. Sakura, do you think Kenji is doing this on purpose? Minato just confessed to me, and now Kenji is acting like this to mess with me. I saw in the news that a college student jumped into the river over a breakup. I thought he couldn't handle it, but it wasn't him. Then he told me he's with some other woman, and now he won't answer his phone. She tossed her phone onto the table. He's trying to ruin my night. Maybe not, Sakura said quietly. Hana looked surprised. Hana, you've seen how he's been clinging to me these past 2 years. You've never liked him either, always giving him the cold shoulder. I couldn't help myself. I pinched Sakura's waist. She winced, her body tensing. What's wrong? Hana asked. Nothing, just a leg cramp, Sakura replied smoothly. All right, I'll let you rest. I'll just use the bathroom and then head out. As Hana disappeared into the bathroom, I remembered something. My socks. I'd washed them and left them hanging in there. Sure enough, Hana emerged a few minutes later with a mischievous grin. Sakura, did you bring a guy to the dorm? You hid it so well. Which guy managed to win over our ice queen? Don't be ridiculous, Sakura said, her voice tight. Hana took a few steps closer to the bed. Going to bed this early? Is someone hiding under the covers? Her voice turned cold. All right. I won't come any closer. I'm leaving. Hana paused, her gaze lingering on Sakura's bed with a mix of curiosity and suspicion. Just make sure you're being safe, she said, a sly grin spreading across her face. I've got plenty of protection if you need it. Don't want any little angels showing up unexpectedly. She squeezed Sakura's clenched fist, her eyes twinkling. Sakura finally met Hana's gaze, her voice cool. I don't like that kind of joke. It's not funny. You're serious? Hana seemed genuinely surprised. Sakura's lips tightened. Yeah, if the light had been brighter, Hana would have seen the effort it took for Sakura to maintain her composure. Her arms were wrapped tightly around her upper body, as if to restrain me. But that didn't mean I couldn't move other parts. Hidden under the blanket, I gently stroked Sakura's thigh. Every touch sent shivers through her. "All right then, I won't disturb you. I'm staying out tonight," Hana said, her voice laced with a knowing tone. She glanced once more at the bed, a hint of disdain in her eyes. Sakura, who always appeared pure and untouchable, so cold towards men, now didn't seem so unattainable after all. If her guess was right, there was probably someone under those covers. But Hana didn't call her out on it. After all, her relationship with Sakura was still fine, even if Sakura's popularity sometimes irked her. Hana turned and left the dorm. As soon as the door clicked shut, I threw off the blanket, gasping for air. "Sakura!" She leaned against the headboard, her gaze fixed on me. The dim light cast long shadows across her face, making her look even more captivating than usual. "Kenji," she began, then paused, as if choosing her words carefully. "I've never been annoyed by you. I've never given you the cold shoulder. Don't believe what she says." With that, she turned away, threw off the covers, and got out of bed. "Go to sleep. What about you, Sakura?" "I'm going to watch my shows. You go ahead and sleep." I grabbed her hand, a playful grin spreading across my face. "Sakura, it's a bit cold tonight. The blanket's too thin." But this time, she pushed my hand away. "Kenji, Hana's gone. You don't have to keep pretending anymore." "What does she have to do with it?" Sakura let out a self-deprecating laugh. "Why were you by the river tonight?" It finally clicked. Hana's comment about someone jumping into the river had made Sakura think I was desperate, that I'd come back to the dorm with her just to spite Hana. I could see why she'd think that. Over the past 2 years, my adoptive parents, the Nakamuras, had been putting pressure on me. After they found their real son, they considered sending me back to my biological parents. Later, perhaps seeing that I still had some value through my engagement with the Liu family, they begrudgingly kept me around. To me, Hana had become a lifeline. I thought that since we'd grown up together, she would feel something for me, and I clung to the hope that she would help me out. "Sakura, I wanted to explain, but she was already standing up, alarmed. "I'm leaving early tomorrow. You don't want anyone seeing you here." She didn't stop, didn't even turn back. I gritted my teeth. "Then what about all those times you kissed me tonight? What about everything we did earlier? What did that mean?" Sakura froze. She turned around to look at me, her eyes wide. "I know you're tired of me," I continued, "but tonight, thank you. If you really don't want anything to do with me, I'll leave now." The silence stretched between us, thick with unspoken emotions. Sakura's face was unreadable. I held my breath, waiting for her answer. I got out of bed, not caring that I couldn't find my shoes, and walked barefoot toward the door. As I passed Sakura, head down, I realized her face was streaked with silent tears. "Kenji..." "Sakura..." I grabbed her. "I told you I don't hate you." I pulled her into my arms. "Do you want me to take responsibility for you?" She hesitated. Before she could answer, I cupped her chin and kissed her deeply. She responded with the same passion, her breathing growing heavier. "Kenji," she whispered, "if you really want to take responsibility for me, then do it completely." I held her slim waist and solemnly replied, "I will." During the long holiday, I went to the city where my biological parents lived. I stayed there for 3 days. By the time I left, those 2 rotten people, addicted to gambling, drinking, and worse, had already been taken away by the police. What awaited them was the harsh and unrelenting hand of the law: human trafficking, gambling rings, and forcing women into prostitution. Thanks to those dreams, I had all the evidence. I didn't need a second life or a rebirth. In this life, I could completely rid myself of these devils and ensure they were punished as they deserved. As I boarded the plane, I let out a long breath. The biggest burden on my mind had finally been lifted. In that moment, I felt free and completely relaxed for the first time. When the plane landed in the capital, The first thing I did was let Sakura know I was safe. She didn't know the real purpose of my trip, thinking I'd just gone on a short vacation with friends. "Are you ready for me to come over tonight?" she asked. "I'm planning to move into my new place. It's no longer convenient for me to stay in the same dorm as Hana." "Everything's ready. You're welcome anytime," I replied. "Kenji?" She paused. "It's Hana's birthday today, and she's throwing a party tonight. She told me to bring my boyfriend." I had forgotten Hana's birthday was during the national holiday. "Kenji, do you want to go with me?" I didn't answer right away, feeling conflicted. It wasn't that I didn't want to go public with my relationship with Sakura, but soon the Nakamura family might sever ties with me. When that happened, the truth about my poor background would be revealed to the world. I knew Sakura wouldn't care, but I didn't want her to be criticized by others, just like in the dream. They had condemned her for being with a man of low status, calling her unfilial and disrespectful, breaking her family's heart. But as Sakura had said that day, since I wanted to take responsibility for her, I had to take full responsibility. You can't have it all, after all. "Sakura," I took a deep breath. "Do you want me to go?" "Yes," she answered without hesitation. "Then come pick me up and we'll go together." I was still holding the phone when I looked up and caught my reflection in the window. I realized I was smiling brightly. "Kenji, look outside." When I looked up, it was like a scene from a movie. Everything was moving in slow motion. The smile still hadn't faded from my face as the airport announcements faded into the background. In the bustling crowd, I saw only Sakura. She waved at me, and without caring about anything, she ran straight toward me. I dropped my luggage and spread my arms. She threw herself into my embrace with so much force, but I still caught her securely. She wrapped her arms around my neck, her face beaming as she teased, "You've got a strong core, huh?" I looked down at her and chuckled. "My back's strong too. Want to test it?" She poked my shoulder and whispered in my ear, giggling, "Test it? You might be quick to run out of steam." I shook my head, exasperated, and muttered, "Just you wait. Don't beg for mercy. Crying won't help." Tonight's birthday party was, as expected, packed with people. Hana made her grand entrance in a stunning purple silk gown, the smooth fabric clinging to her slender frame, swaying lightly with each step like starlight moving through the night. Minato, looking dashing and confident, wore a custom-tailored suit, with every detail from his cufflinks to his hair perfectly in place. The two of them together made a striking pair. Minato, basking in the praise of his friends, glanced over at Hana, but she seemed a bit distracted. Her eyes scanned the crowd, searching for someone. "Hana?" Minato called her name, snapping her out of her lovesick daze. "Earth to Hana." "What?" she snapped back, clearly annoyed at being interrupted. "Well, it's getting late and everyone's starving, except not everyone's here yet." He glanced around the room, his perfectly styled hair catching the light. "Where's Sakura?" "And Kenji's MIA too," someone else chimed in. "It's your birthday, Hana. No way he'd miss this, right?" "I didn't invite him," Hana said, her voice laced with ice. "And even if he showed up, I wouldn't let him in." Minato, ever the charmer, tried to soothe her ruffled feathers. "Hana, don't let an irrelevant person ruin your mood. It's your birthday." Hana looked at him, her annoyance momentarily forgotten. Minato really was a sight for sore eyes, with his expensive suit and perfectly sculpted jawline. Kenji, bless his heart, was... well, let's just say he wasn't exactly winning any beauty contests. But lately, Hana had started to realize that Minato's charm was only skin deep. He was shallow, self-absorbed, and not nearly as interesting as she'd initially thought. The fact that Kenji had been MIA for the past month hadn't escaped her notice either. No more waiting outside the dorm, no more shared lunches, no more awkward attempts at flirting. It was unsettling. Not that she missed him, of course. It was just, well, she wasn't used to someone who had always revolved around her suddenly disappearing. It messed with her sense of order. If he comes crawling back tonight, begging for forgiveness, she thought to herself, a smirk playing on her lips, maybe I'll let him stay in my life. As a pet, of course. Suddenly, the door burst open, interrupting her thoughts. "Guess who I just saw?" a guy exclaimed, his eyes wide with excitement. "Who? Don't keep us in suspense." "It's Kenji. Hana, we told you he couldn't stay away. He's totally whipped." Hana's frown vanished, replaced by a smug smile. Minato, on the other hand, looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. "Hana, can you tell him to leave?" he whined. "The guy's like a bad rash. Just the thought of him makes me want to shower in disinfectant." Hana's smile widened. "Fine, let him leave." "Who are you asking to leave?" a familiar voice said from behind. The room fell silent. Everyone watched as Kenji strolled in hand with Sakura. Hana's jaw dropped. She grabbed the nearest glass and hurled it at the floor, the shards scattering like a broken disco ball. "Get out!" she shrieked, her face contorted with rage. "Both of you, get out!" Minato, looking like a deer caught in headlights, finally managed to sputter, "Hana, you're bleeding!" She ignored him, her eyes fixed on Sakura. "Explain yourself." Sakura merely smiled. "Explain what? Why is Kenji here with you?" "You invited me to bring my boyfriend to your birthday party, remember?" Sakura leaned closer to Kenji, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Or did you forget that part?" Hana's fury reached a boiling point. She swept everything off the nearest table, sending plates and glasses crashing to the floor. "Sakura, do you even know that Kenji is mine?" "Yours." Sakura laughed, a cold, brittle sound. "In what way? Is he your boyfriend, your fiancé? Or do you just assume that anyone who's ever liked you is obligated to remain eternally devoted while you get to play the field?" The room was silent. Everyone stared at Hana, waiting for her response. Hana ignored her and continued. "You knew Kenji liked me and you still went behind my back. Is this how you treat your best friend with that?" She reached out to grab my arm. "Oh my God, Hana, seriously? You're still on this?" I sighed, resisting the urge to roll my eyes. "I liked you? Honey, bless your heart. Delusion is a powerful thing, isn't it?" I grabbed her shoulder, more to steady myself than anything, and then, well, maybe I did shove her a little. Okay, a lot. Her purple dress looked like it had an unfortunate run-in with a grape press. "Look," I said, trying to keep the exasperation out of my voice, mostly failing. "Stop flattering yourself, and stop clinging. There's nothing between us to break. If Sakura dug up your grave, she still wouldn't find me there. And FYI, I sought her out. I don't like you. Haven't for a long time. Got it?" Hana's face was a masterpiece of offended disbelief. "Kenji, what did you say?" She scrambled to her feet, wine-soaked dress and all. "You almost jumped into the river for me." "Please," I scoffed. "Drama much? I was never jumping in for you. It's not that serious. Who do you think I am?" The reason I was at the river that night was to find an excuse to see Sakura. Hana froze, her eyes widening. Then, the glare returned, sharper this time. "So, that night, in Sakura's bed, it was you?" "Bingo!" I clapped my hands together. "Now if you'll excuse us, Sakura and I have a new apartment to explore. You should, focus on your own relationships. I told you that night, I'm not coming back." I took Sakura's hand. "Sakura, let's go home. You wanted to see the new place, right?" Sakura, however, wasn't moving. She gave Hana a look that could curdle milk. "Hana," she said, her voice calm but razor-sharp, "Kenji is my boyfriend. He has nothing to do with you. And I don't want to hear any more of your rumors." Hana, bless her heart, was losing it. "Kenji, you said you liked me. And now you're leaving me for her? Do you think you're worth anything?" I shook my head. "If you don't know my worth, maybe you should ask your father." Ouch. Low blow, maybe, but she started it. Hana's face twisted into something truly ugly. "Kenji, Sakura doesn't know, does she? About you not being the real Nakamura heir. Keeping such a big secret. Not very nice, is it?" I'd known this was coming, but hearing it out loud still stung. Hana laughed, seeing my reaction. "So you have been keeping it from her. I knew it. Sakura's only with you because she thinks you're some rich heir. If she knew the truth, That you're just an adopted nobody. She'd ditch you in a heartbeat, wouldn't she? Sakura let go of my hand. She calmly rolled up her sleeves, removed her bracelet, and handed it to me. I always thought you were fickle and untrustworthy, Hana, she said, each word precise and deadly. But I never thought you were evil. Now I see I was wrong. Sakura stepped forward, grabbed Hana's hair, and yanked her forward. Hana yelped. Before she could react, Sakura raised her hand and slapped her. Hard. Again. And again. With each slap, she delivered a verbal blow. You're not just a worthless piece of trash, Hana. You're a despicable lowlife. And another thing, I'm not like you. I don't care about who's rich or who's the heir to whatever family. I like Kenji for who he is, not his name or his family. If his name were Bob or Ethel, I'd still love him just the same. Hana was bright red now, but she wasn't done. A guy like him, tricking girls into sleeping with him with a fake identity? Trash attracts trash. You two deserve each other. Before Hana could utter another syllable of her delusional rant, I saw red. My hand connected with her face, a satisfying crack echoing through the air. One less tooth. She crumpled to the floor, clutching her jaw, too stunned to even whine. Sakura grabbed my arm. Kenji, stop! You'll get in trouble! I nodded, took a deep breath, and grabbed her hand. Sakura, let's go home. As we reached the car, I paused. Sakura, I said, looking directly into her eyes. She was wearing a light silk blouse, and her teary-eyed look made her seem almost vulnerable. Which, considering she just slapped Hana into next week, was kind of captivating. 4 years. 4 years of trying to prove myself, clinging to any lifeline, only to be met with disappointment. The elders who'd once doted on me now looked at me with cold indifference. My bio-parents were greedy demons, and I lived in fear of being sent back to them. Even Hana. I really didn't go to the river because of Hana, I said, my voice low. And I've never been with anyone before. You're my first and only girlfriend. Sakura stood on her tiptoes and kissed me. I wrapped my arms around her, kissing her back. Finally, she gently rubbed my palm. Kenji, she whispered, I don't care about any of that. But hearing you say it still makes me happy. I know, I said. I'm telling you because I don't want anyone throwing dirt on my name. I'm doing this for you and for myself. I pulled her closer. Sakura, let's hurry home. You're dressed too lightly. You'll catch a cold. She held my hand tightly, very tightly, and from that moment on, she never let go. Before Sakura and I went public, I had a little chat with the Nakamura elders. With Hinata's help, yes, that Hinata, I regained my independence. No more ties to the Nakamuras or my bio-parents. I knew if they found out about Sakura, they'd be all over the Ishidas like white on rice. And I wasn't dragging Sakura and her family into that mess. As I left the Nakamura house, Mrs. Nakamura wasn't exactly thrilled. Kenji, she said, her voice dripping with resentment, we raised you all these years, spent millions on you, and we haven't gotten a single penny in return. My mindset had shifted. The Nakamuras had raised me for 16 years. It had been rough, especially after the real Nakamura heir showed up, but they hadn't starved me. Even Hinata, who'd once been so hostile, had done a 180. He'd even helped me resolve my final issues and convinced Mrs. Nakamura not to air my dirty laundry. Madam, I said, bowing respectfully, I will never forget your kindness in raising me. Easy for you to say, she sneered. You couldn't even win over a childhood friend like Hana. What future do you have? Forget it, just go. I can't stand the sight of you. I didn't bother explaining, I just gave Hinata a look. Mom, I'll walk Kenji out, Hinata said. His expression softened. Come back soon, we're having dinner. Got it? Hinata smiled. We stopped in the garden. We looked at each other and then suddenly we both burst out laughing. Bro, I said, hugging him. Thank you. At the same time, Hinata quietly said, Kenji, I'm sorry. We didn't say much more. We didn't have to. Hinata's apology. It wasn't just for this Kenji. It was for the Kenji in the dream, too. My eyes got a little misty, and even Hinata shed a few. Finally, he squeezed my hand. "Kenji," he said, his voice thick, "this time, you have to be really, really happy." "I will, bro," I replied. "You too. I'd repay the family's kindness by helping Hinata in the future. He'd suffered for 16 years while I'd lived in comfort. In the dream, I'd hated him. Now, all grudges were gone. When Sakura took me to meet her parents, I was a nervous wreck. Mrs. Ishida had become super religious lately. Every year, she'd go to Paji Temple to burn the first incense. Don't ask me why. "Don't be nervous," Sakura said. "My mom's become really kind since she started practicing Buddhism, and my dad just goes along with whatever she says." I nodded, trying to calm the anxiety bubbling in my chest. I was mentally rehearsing my lines when Sakura suddenly said, "Kenji, my mom's coming out to meet us." "Great." Mrs. Ishida walked down the steps. I straightened my shoulders, put on my best charming smile, and greeted her. "Hello, ma'am." I handed her the gift I'd brought. She smiled, but her eyes never left me. Even after we went inside, she kept staring. Then she insisted on taking me upstairs to her study. I shot Sakura a worried look, but Mrs. Ishida just patted my shoulder. "Don't be nervous, Kenji. Let's just have a little chat upstairs." She turned to Sakura and teased, "No need for you to be nervous either. I'm not a monster, am I?" I managed a stiff smile and a nod. Upstairs, Mrs. Ishida was practically beaming. "Look, Mr. Ishida," she said to her husband, "isn't Kenji just as I said? Handsome and refined?" Mr. Ishida, a gentle, scholarly type, nodded. "Indeed, very well-mannered, a good young man." I was completely lost. Then Mrs. Ishida's eyes welled up. "Kenji," she said, her voice trembling, "don't get the wrong idea. This might sound strange, but I've been having the same dream for years. In the dream, Sakura never married. She passed away alone in her 40s. Mr. and Mrs. Ishida hadn't believed it at first. A dream? But then, little by little, everything else from the dream started coming true. Mrs. Ishida's tears flowed freely. I've spent these years praying, following a vegetarian diet, all for Sakura. I was so scared the final part of the dream would come true. I always thought, if that boy really existed, how wonderful it would be if he could be with Sakura. And now, seeing you. I know my prayers weren't in vain. Kenji, you and Sakura, you must take good care of each other." My own eyes were blurry. In this world, there were people like my bio parents, and then there were people like Mrs. Ishida who loved their children fiercely. How lucky was I to have found Sakura, to have found this family? Finally, all the regrets from the dream were gone. Sakura and I graduated. We got married. We moved into our own place. Happy ever after, right? Well, mostly. Life, as it turns out, is still a bit of a roller coaster. But hey, at least I've got Sakura by my side. And that, as they say, makes all the difference. One day, I was enjoying a perfectly normal shower when Sakura, bless her heart, decided to get a little creative. She put on my pearl earring. Just the earring. Just the earring. When I emerged, I was greeted by the sight of her lying in bed, completely under the covers, pretending to be asleep. I tiptoed over and kissed her cheek softly. My lips brushed against her skin. It tickled. Her lashes fluttered, but she kept her eyes closed. I chuckled and kissed her again, then pulled back the blanket, ready to join her, and promptly froze. The bedside lamp cast a warm glow over the room. The pearl earring. Damn! It glinted in the light, nestled in my hair. The contrast, my flushed skin against the pale sheets. It was distracting, like delicate cherries in a jade bowl. I was suddenly shy, nervous, but then I saw the look on Sakura's face, and all the tension melted away. I pounced on her, wrapping my arms around her neck. "Kenji," she whispered, her voice husky. "Do you like it? You're staring so hard." I could feel every muscle in her body tense. Her skin was burning. Her Adam's apple bobbed, incredibly enticing. I turned my head and gently bit her throat. It was like opening the floodgates, or waking a dormant volcano. Suddenly, I was on top, taking control. My kisses were intense, deep, overwhelming. She could barely keep up. I kept repeating her name over and over, Sakura, Sakura. When it became too much, I whispered, "If it hurts, bite me." She closed her eyes and nodded softly. Her nails raked down my back, leaving scratches. She bit my shoulder, leaving deep marks. And it hurt. God, it hurt. I couldn't help but cry out, "Kenji." Her eyes were filled with tears. I must have looked terrifying. I instinctively thought she'd freak out, but then I froze, pulling her into my arms. She clung to me. And suddenly, I remembered that day at the airport. "Didn't you say back then that crying and begging wouldn't work?" I asked. The desire in her eyes hadn't faded. It was clear how much she was restraining herself, how agonizing it was for her. I hugged her tighter. "I can't bear it," she whispered. "Sakura, when did you start liking me?" She didn't answer. She just hugged me tighter. "If you don't talk," I said, "then I won't tell you when I started liking you either." Despite the passion in her gaze, there was an overwhelming tenderness beneath it. I couldn't resist her persistence. "From the first time I saw you, Sakura," I said, "I once thought I'd never get the chance to tell you." I kissed the corner of her lips. "It's all right, Sakura. Now we have a whole lifetime together." "Yes," she whispered. "A lifetime." Our fingers intertwined. I leaned down to kiss her, and she met me halfway. It was tender. It was deep. "Kenji," she whispered, "I don't think it hurts anymore. Do you want to keep going?" The rest, as they say, is history. The room was soon filled with the kind of sounds that make one's face flush. The night felt like it would never end, and even longer than the night was the lifetime we had ahead of us.